Hey everyone, welcome. Hey everyone, welcome to the Pickleball Effect podcast. This is episode 78. Joined this week by Aaron, the editor, and Kyle. Guys, welcome.
Thank you.
Big shout out to our title sponsor this week. We have Pickleball Central. They are the largest online retailer. Everything you need from shoes, balls, backpacks, paddles. And if you use the link in the description, it's going to apply the best possible discount across the entire website. All you have to do is go to the description, click on the link, and it'll automatically apply the discount. They don't do discount codes. If you want to get the discount, you have to use the link in the description. Take advantage of Pickleball Central with their 30-day free trial that they offer on all their paddles. Not every brand does that. That's a big deal. They have great customer service, and then they have that rewards program. So if you do all your shopping through Pickleball Central, you'll build up some rewards and get discounts, even bigger discounts on stuff you purchase in the future. So shout out to Pickleball Central. Do your shopping there. So weekly update, 3-0 to 5-0. And then Kyle's Corner and Paddle Babble. Paddle Babble this week, we're going to do a preview of the benchmark report. So we talked a little bit about this last week. I asked everyone to tell me what paddle they were using. Big thank you to everyone who put your level and your paddle in the description. I got all that recorded. We had over 1,200 people respond to that survey, which is awesome. We got some really cool data. We're going to go through some of the the more interesting points that were uncovered from it. But I'm going to be launching that this week. And then Kyle's Corner. Kyle, what do we got?
A little bit, some paddle movement with sponsors. Talk about some of the paddles we saw at MLP, a little bit of MLP stuff, and then USAP lawsuit talk. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. That kind of was like quiet for a minute, and then all of a sudden, there's this huge countersuit from USAP, and it was just buzzing everywhere. 3-0 to 5-0 is going to be mine this week, and then Aaron, we don't have an Aaron segment. Aaron just comes in, drops nuggets on everything we say. I guess this is just the Aaron show.
He adds that youthful flair.
I always think of the stupid AI song, Pickleball Effect, break it down hard. Braydon and Kyle. Sometimes when Aaron comes in,
we're not allowed to use AI anymore. We got flamed for that.
I was thinking about bringing my own segment, but unless I got something strong, I think I'm just gonna sit on the sidelines and witness greatness.
We may.
But give me some time. I'll think of something.
We'll get you a segment here. I should have given you the 3-0 to 5-0 like we normally do.
Thank you for not. I looked today at the show notes, and because I get it every time. Of course, you're going to toss it to me because you've been playing ping pong for the other 3 weeks, and so I look and you were taking it, and I was like, oh, thank God I don't have to share some terrible tip every time I come on. I have to have terrible advice. My segment is 3-0 to 5-0, but bad.
He should be like the video tip of the week since he's like an editor. Yeah,
video tip of the week.
Maybe we do 3-0 to 4-0.
I guess video tip of the week.
Change it for you.
We'll do it right now. Kyle, prep your cards before recording. Video tip of the week.
I should have formatted them before.
We're on take 2. We had a camera issue.
We're on
with
take
Kyle.
3.
Oh, 3.
Take 3.
Yeah, I had to do my usual couple of retakes at the beginning. It'll always be that way. It'll never be a time where I sit in front of the camera and just riff first try.
Don't sell yourself so short. You've come so long.
It's been like 5 years, Aaron.
No. But you know that the average podcast like doesn't last like 15 episodes or something like that. Like it's actually we're pretty deep.
we're pretty deep. And that's more I don't know if that doesn't necessarily speak to our popularity. It might just speak to our stupidity that we just keep going.
our stubbornness to just continue.
Yeah. Not a ton of weekly update this week. One thing I thought was just funny. It kind of came up after our episode last week, Kyle. We were joking in the Adidas segment about monocoque, right? So a couple people messaged me after, like, Braydon, it's monocoque, and I was like, I swear that they were saying monocoque, and I went watched Brian building pickleball's video to see if he actually said it from his recording, and I didn't see it. And I was like, oh crap, did I hear this wrong? But I swear he was saying it, and then later, like that day, I guess the guy that was saying monocoque kind of gave the first pitch. And then there was like another pitch later in the day where that guy was saying monocoque, but he had like an accent, and I just thought it was his accent. So I was sticking with monocoque. And this might have been just the highest, best troll that Adidas has ever done on all the creators, just to go get us to say monocoque on all of our videos.
They just gaslighted everybody. Like, no, we never said that. Like, and they just show videos of the guy saying monocoque.
Yeah, they just go in and fix it.
I've definitely seen a clip of the Adidas guys.
I saw it too.
Thank you.
And so to introduce a new word into the pickle industry and then to potentially mispronounce it could be the largest plant. Although maybe that's a more wild marketing tactic than it is a good paddle. Okay.
And they didn't sell of everything. It was just I saw they sold out of
just
one
the
of
hot,
EVA models.
just the EVA team,
on Pickleball Central.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, I just thought that was funny. Mono Coke is what we're gonna say moving forward with the occasional cock and just see if anyone notices.
Yeah. Slide it in there.
And then Aaron and I we're going to Selkirk. It's not this week, right? It's a week and a half.
Week from. See, this podcast comes out Tuesday. We'll be there a week after this podcast. So
we won't report on that next week. That'll be the week after. We might have to have you come on again to join that one. Kyle, you're not coming, right?
Nah, I got some custody stuff I'm still ironing out, so I'm trying to stay home.
You were thinking about it though.
I was going to actually make like a day trip. I didn't know the Olsons are going too. I was going to try and just like make like a day trip, but it's too crammed.
Yeah, it's going to be like a day and a morning, I think is what we're doing. We're getting in, I think Monday, I want to say Monday night. Most of it's Tuesday. And then Wednesday morning, we're going to shoot a little like interview piece. And then we're out. Yeah, see, I would have flown out Tuesday night or Tuesday afternoon. So I would have just been there for the boring part on Wednesday.
In your defense, Kyle, there is like a million of these pickleball trips. And so they almost like it's every other weekend. And so you miss two.
Exactly.
There's five.
It seems like it's becoming a common thing for sure.
Yeah. You'll get another chance.
You will be missed severely.
Yeah, we got this one. And then I think Dirty Tourney's the one after that.
Yeah. Which I will be going to.
Yep.
Yeah. That's going to be a blast. Aaron will be playing and filming. So we need to sit down, Aaron. We need to have a little sit down and come up with some content plan for this stuff so that we're well prepared. I think when we went to the YOLA one, we had a general idea what we wanted, but we didn't have pen to paper. I think we put pen to paper this time. Go be a little more prepared for these
prank videos. I'm trying to think. I'm surprised that some of those YOLA interviews didn't do as good as I would have expected, and so maybe we just need to completely flip the content.
Yeah, maybe not a straight interview.
I don't know.
Some viralicity
baked
virality. That's not a word. Is that a word? It could be a word. Viralicity.
Look it up, bro.
This is why my stuff has never gone viral.
I got great ideas for content. Is we go bang on other content creators' doors in the middle of the night since we're all in the same hotel, and cause some havoc.
You can do that. I'll take some naps.
I'll film it for you, Kyle. I'll film it.
And then just short update on content coming up. So Blue Course, the end of this month or next month, I'm gonna do a Blue Core versus 008 versus True Foam review with the focus on the Blue Cores. So these are the first 3 full foam paddles that have been released. Gonna be comparing all those. Then I'm going to do a full review for the Friday Fever paddle that's coming out on the 16th. This is going to be the cheapest Gen 3 paddle. I think they're going for $100 is what they told me. Yeah, there she is. So we're gonna compare that against the existing Gen 3s, see where it stacks, and it could potentially be the best deal. I just played it for the first time the other day. Good first impressions, really light, added some weight, and it just felt like a solid Gen 3. So. I haven't hit it side by side other ones, but good first impressions on that one. And then May Paddle Blitz, we're going to do the end of the month. Plan to include Sega 14s, Gearbox GX2, and the Wilsons. Have you guys gotten any times with the Sega Saga 14s?
Just a little bit, not a ton. I heard a rumor that some of them didn't get approved. Is that true? I didn't follow up on it, but.
There might have. I think there was like a V7 or something that didn't. Get
okay, so it was just like one of the models. Okay,
models.
Yeah, somebody messaged me saying they heard they didn't get approved, and I didn't look into it, but
yeah, something like that. And then the Wilsons have been like a lot of people are very interested in these Wilsons. You guys seen those? The racket shaped.
I just saw pictures of it.
Design.
I don't have a contact with Wilson, so
I just ran the numbers on that one. I haven't averaged it up, so I don't know where it sits. I don't know how many game plays, but any gameplay with it, but yeah, those are going to be the ones I'm focusing there. Then I think I'm going to do a couple pairs of shoes in there. I've never really done any shoe type stuff.
Nice.
And I figured this is a place to kind of mess with it, see what the response is there. But yeah, that's what I got coming up. I don't know. What about you guys? Anything else you're thinking about? Having good stuff going on this week?
Just hitting a bunch of new paddles. Got that new shape from Selkirk, which I'm interested to hit. It's the Maxima.
Yeah,
Vast
I don't
departure
know
from the last one.
I don't know what they're going to call that one. It says Maxima. That's the 008.
Yeah, it's 008, and it's the same shape as that unreleased SLK wide body, which is interesting.
Yeah, from what I understand, they're going to move to two different shapes in the future. They're going to have an elongated and a wide body, and they're just going to move away from shape names.
Okay.
Like Maxima, Invicta, and just elongated wide body. That's just going to be the names of the shapes, which I think is smart. No reason to, and confuse or add different brand names that you don't necessarily need.
No,
so
they
they're
have
just going to have a
ton.
series name and then those two shapes. But yeah, that new wide body shape is money.
Yeah.
It looks very similar to like a Neonic Flare or just an X, and then the like a Mach 2 Forza type style.
So a little bit wider than the Epic? A little bit more rounded?
It's definitely shaped differently. I got one on my wall.
It's this one here.
Yeah, he's got it.
I haven't put it next to the others yet. It's a longer handle though.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's any wider. If anything, it actually might be a little longer. Their Epic was under 16. I think the target for this was 16 by 8. Yeah, there's going to be the two shapes. Not going to do a hybrid, from what I understand, and we'll talk more about that in the benchmark preview of how popular hybrid is, and maybe they need to reconsider that. But yeah, let's go 3.0 to 5.0. This is brought to you by Holy. This is our hydration partner. Go to these guys, get your electrolytes, really good flavors. They also have pregame, a caffeinated hydration drink, and then a postgame. I love that they have a system. It's easy to follow. It's easy to use. They taste great. Lots of options. Go to Holy for your hydration needs. Link and code in the description. Code is PB Effect. Thank you, Holy. So 3.0 to 5.0. This is a phrase I've heard from a couple different videos over the last year or two that I really, really like, and that I don't think gets brought up enough. The phrase is just get good at what happens most. So I don't know. The reason I think this is a big deal is when people warm up and they go straight to dinking. Usually if you go drill with somebody, half of it is dinking games, right? Mm-hmm. Is that the same experience for you guys?
Yeah.
There's a lot of focus on elements of the game that don't necessarily happen the most often. It kind of depends on what your level is, and so this can gonna adapt and is gonna maybe be different depending on where you're at in your game. But get good at what happens most. So this is serves, this is returns. These are things like I would put in order. Serves and returns every single point, right? Get good at those. Get good reserves. Returns are just massively important. People are focusing on, there's that video from Zane recently about turning returns into a weapon. How pros are thinking about that more. I think amateurs should be thinking about that more. Whenever my returns are off, they're shallow. You just get eaten up. People are attacking that, and so you got to get those returns deep. So that's a big deal. Get good at those. And then like next online, I like that pecking order. I'd put volleys. So handling drives, counters, just kind of anything up here at the net. You see a lot of that, especially very early on in a point, and or like fourths when someone hits a third in, you're leaning in, you're rolling it, you're trying to put pressure on them as they come in. Mm-hmm. Those type of shots, or I guess you could kind of put into that volley category. So those are the top three things I think you work on and focus on and get good at first, and then comes things like dinking, speed ups, those elements of the game. And anyways, whatever that hierarchy is for you, whether you how you kind of want to organize that, those are things that I think you focus on. Look at your game. What do you do the most? Do you drive a lot? Do you hit thirds a lot? Do you whatever it is, go get good at those things first. And so as I was kind of writing this out and thinking about this, the big one for me was returns.
Yep, that's a good
one.
And
then handling thirds, like doing more off of people's thirds, whether they drive at me. I don't feel like a block on a drive is enough anymore. I need to just do a little more with it. So that kind of comes in stages, right? You have to be able to block, get the ball down. That's stage one. Stage two is okay. Now I need to do something a little, with that. And so that's what I'm looking at. and just looking to lean in, reach, do something more with people's thirds. I hate playing people that are so good at that. Like you feel like you hit a good third and they just reach in and just snap it at you, and you're just like, what the heck? And it's so hard to get to the net. So those are the things I'm thinking about as I think about this concept of getting good at what happens most. So use that to kind of frame your drilling and how you should improve your game on like, okay, what's next for me? I think that's a good question to ask. Anything to add to that from you guys?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is, gosh, I don't know. I just totally blacked out. That's so funny.
This is when you're supposed to shine, Aaron.
The inconvenience of drilling, I think, like dinking is so much easier, especially if it's like a hybrid warm-up drill where you want to play some games, but maybe you kind of want a dynamic warm-up, so you're really not going to get into like any inconvenient drills. Maybe it's really annoying. You don't have enough balls to like drill serves. Or so for me, the reason I don't think I would say I'm avoiding these like 4 most important serve, return, you could say thirds and fourths, maybe like the first 4 shots of a rally. You're right, because why are you dinking if one, your thirds are bad, or you're getting murdered on thirds, and you don't have very good fourths, you're not protecting your partner, or you're giving them a really easy fifth by just kind of doing light blocking like you're talking about. And for me, I would say the biggest thing is it's hard to get past the inconvenience of doing drills that are annoying, or if you don't have a ton of balls, maybe like thirds can get like constantly hitting it into the net. And so pushing past like these are the 4 most important shots, I'm gonna set aside time and maybe do less dinking and saying this is maybe a quote unquote more annoying drill, but it's gonna have more impact. And so I think that's a good call out.
Yeah, I like that. And like especially returns and serves, that's something that I bet people very rarely drill, and it's not a sexy thing, right? It's not something people are really thinking about. It's just kind of a natural part of the point. But if you're intentionally drilling those things and using those as as a weapon, as part of your game, that's intentional, it'll turn into something for you. Kyle, any thoughts there?
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty good about because like for me, what happens most, I'm not the fastest guy, so I'm digging stuff out of the transition zone a lot. So I will actually like in a warm up get into the transition zone and just hit softballs for like my partner to crush at me to practice resetting them back, because I feel like I do get in that position a lot. But returns are huge, and you're right. Sometimes I'll like do a full warm up and I won't even have hit a single serve or return by the time we're playing. And like we go to serve and we realize we didn't even hit a serve warming up at all.
Yeah.
My serve's okay.
Yeah.
My returns are not the greatest though. So like I think intentionally drilling returns consistently before games would actually be a big deal for me.
Yeah. Returns, dude. The last few videos I've recorded for reviews, I've just watching through them. The majority of the points we lose stem from a weak return.
Yep.
Like when you're serving, that's just causes a lot of issues. All right, Kyle's corner. Let's go there. There's actually some really fun stuff that we're going to talk here. Not that your section just sucks normally, Kyle.
Ouch. Well, it's just that we actually have. Well, first off, Kyle's corner brought to you by Slice. Slice. You got a cap in hand? Oh yeah.
Yep. Got the cap, the coin.
Nice.
He's
capping. He's capping.
Full cap. I need to get a few more made, and that's another thing I love about them is they'll custom make whatever you want. I want to get some with cupcakes on them. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, if you guys,
nice.
I will. These will be PE sponsored. Give me a design. I'll go order one for you guys because it's really fun to have a custom cap.
Yeah,
and they look so good.
Yeah. Another thing that I really like about Slice is the way they tactfully put Slice in the designs. Like when they do like other brands, the way they still put Slice in there, but it looks good and not like overdone.
You can like barely see it on here.
Yeah,
non-invasive.
Yeah, so like I love they do a great job of that. So thanks, Slice. All right. But Kyle's corner.
Link in description. PB Effect is the code as always. Take it away, Kyle.
All right. So MLP is back on. We'll start there. Some big changes. We are not doing rally scoring.
That's what everyone's doing when they're watching MLP.
Everybody's freaking out. I don't know if you guys have checked on Facebook, but it's like a violent reaction to going to side out scoring.
Oh, really?
Yes. Like there's so many people that are like, I hate this. I miss rally scoring. I love it. I wanted to get your guys' opinion. Like I watched MLP, a lot of it, and I'm like,
what was their reasoning? Like what?
They think it takes away from like the excitement. There was a lot of people that saying it's way less exciting with side out scoring, but to me it was more exciting. So it's weird. Did you guys watch any of it?
I was doing my impression here for the scary colored courts.
Oh yeah,
that were hard to watch.
That was the design choice for the DoorDash court. Like that was horrendous, and it looked even worse on camera. Like
the DoorDash or just the colors?
Well, I think it was orange because of the DoorDash. Like I think that's why they chose.
It was orange because of the hometown team colors.
The squeeze colors. Yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah,
bad orange.
It was so hard to see the ball when you were watching.
It was hideous. It was worse than like last year's US Open where they just like hyper saturated the video feed. Right. I don't know if you remember that, Braydon, but it was bad.
No, I don't remember that. But no, I mean, in regards to the scoring, I didn't even think twice about it. I was watching it, enjoying it.
Oh, I loved it.
Miss the rally scoring. I was just like, oh, this is nice. No. They have it back to traditional. I didn't like. It wasn't even a second thought to me, really.
Yeah. Well, when you get a chance, check the Facebook because people are losing their minds.
Like, why does that happen? Is it just because it's a change? Like,
yeah,
because people complain about rally. People, you just can't please everybody.
Yeah. No, there's no way. Like, there's always going to be people for either or. I still think that the side out scoring is more traditional and it makes for a better game and the better team will win in the end. So.
Yeah, it makes for a better team. And you can also, I don't know, like when I go back and look at scores, you can see who won the match, right? Like it's 11-0, 11-2. You see the score lines, whereas before the points were really close and you didn't really know if it was a close game or if there was a dominant team because rally scoring makes it, doesn't really look like how the game actually was. And so now when I go back and look at scores, I'm like, okay, this was obviously the better team.
Yeah. You see 11-1, 11-2.
As I was looking through scores.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of heavy, like lopsided score lines like that.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, for sure. Anna Lee lost, a women's game, which is, that doesn't happen often.
Did she? I didn't see that one.
Yeah, her and Megan, they lost. And it was significant. I think they lost like 11-2. Wow. They ended up winning in the Dream Breaker, which that Dream Breaker was amazing. Zane was against Catherine Parento. And it was...
Oh, we had a guy-girl matchup.
Oh, two of them. You had, I think AJ Kohler was against Anna Lee, and then CP against Zane. It was fun.
How did AJ do against Anna Lee?
Exactly how you think AJ Kohler would do against Anna Lee. Not very good.
Got smoked?
Yeah, but CP was doing good against Zane, which was it was fun. But then another thing I wanted to note was like we saw some different paddles out there, which was cool. A Selkirk. A lot of people were using that new SLK, which we, I don't know how much we're supposed to talk about still, but now it's out there. People have seen it. But it's crazy to me that the paddle these pros are choosing to use from Selkirk is coming from their budget line.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute. It is a funny thing but it also doesn't surprise me because Selkirk uses their SLK line to essentially make what's trendy, right? Like they had the Kevlar paddles, they did their raw carbon fiber. Every time there's a trend that picks up, it gets popular, it ends up in their SLK line. So this, I don't think it's I'm unknown that these are their Gen 3 model. So these new SLKs are their Gen 3, and has proven to be the best style of paddle right now for that combination of power and pop at the pro level, or power and forgiveness at the pro level. And so, that's why they're switching to it. But like, I don't know, when I think of Selkirk, a lot of their stuff, or all of their stuff really, is built for, like their mainline stuff is built for the everyday consumer, right? It's not made for pros. It's not made for the enthusiasts, the early adopters. And so those aren't the people who are buying those paddles. It's the, people that walk into the Selkirk shop and don't know what to buy, and they buy their paddle, right? And so, I'm happy for the Selkirk pros that they are getting a paddle that they can compete with. Because it's been a minute since they've had one. But just the way they do it, like it doesn't surprise me, but it is kind of comical that they're best performing paddles in their SLK line.
Oh, love that.
I mean, Rachel Rohrbacher played with that Halo for like that's been her main forever, right? I mean, it has to be like a breath of fresh air to actually have a power with some like gumption behind it. And so I mean, she was I don't know if she switched. I'm sure she did, but Catherine switched. Jack Sock switched. I mean, if a paddle's good, I feel like the pros will jump really fast because when the Project 7 came out, Catherine was only like a few people switched.
I think
to it,
for
right?
like
But not
one
everyone,
tournament though.
Not everyone.
I think
went.
she only used it for one tournament.
Yeah. And so if it's a good paddle, I feel like the pros can pick up on it really quick. And so I think it's kind of an indication. Again, I know there's sometimes a divide on pro paddles with what works into amateurs, but as far as maybe just left, right, good or bad, if it's good, I feel like they jump pretty fast.
Yeah, no one picked up the 007 really. No one picked up the 008 really. Like there was like one or two of them, but yeah, it wasn't widespread like this one.
Yeah. Along with the paddle movement, we saw a huge, in Selkirk, we saw a pro from Selkirk leave and go to Valère. Dylan Frazier is playing
Dylan
Valère,
Frazier, yeah.
Which, I mean, Valère hasn't even had a real pro because I don't count Julian Arnold because wasn't he like ownership kind of? Like he had stock or something in the
early on he was like the pro / co-owner.
Exactly,
I think is what it was at the very beginning. But yeah, then they had some sort of
falling out. But that's what I mean. So I feel like Dylan Frazier is like their first real signed pro.
Yeah, they had Kyle Yates for a minute.
Oh, that is true.
That was pretty short lived.
Yeah.
Yep.
But Kyle wasn't. I mean, Kyle's still like one of the goats. But when he's had signed with Valère, he was not as
like
mainstream as like Dylan.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Dylan is. I mean, he's a top 10 dude. Yeah. That was a huge pickup for them. He's playing their elongated Kevlar,
which is that's surprising.
So he may be the only person playing a Kevlar that I can think of, or there might be a Ruby out there.
There's some Ruby pros. Yeah, isn't what Tom Ford, right? Isn't he using
Ruby?
Amped up Ruby?
But yeah, that was interesting. I don't know. I'm still kind of thinking about Selkirk though. The when Aaron and I go up there, these are gonna be some of the questions I think I want to ask them. Aaron is like, you have this huge testing lab, all this crazy equipment. What's the plan? With your main line, do you want these to be performance paddles, or are these always going to be geared towards the general market? I think that'll be fascinating. It seems they always seem like they're cooking on something, but then they don't come out with anything super interesting, if that makes sense.
Right. Like if this Gen 3 SLK came out, I don't know, like into last year, that might have felt maybe a little bit more connected. Gen 3s were popular. Whole YOLA debacle. YOLA fixes it with the 3S. Selkirk matches with an SLK Gen 3, right? That kind of feels like on par. But I mean, the fact that we're seeing it in April of 25, I almost wonder when we go how they talk about the paddle lines. If they talk about them with equal excitement, or if they even within their vernacular that there's a divide between SLK and the future of foam with 008. Because from us as an outside perspective, we're really praising potentially, we don't know anything about like the break-in, or really we haven't really reviewed this paddle, but we're praising from afar that this SLK Gen 3 might be the best Selkirk. And so are they aware of what the consensus community is saying as well? Or is it they just kind of filled a need, like Kevlar came later, Gen 3 comes later, and they still think the 008 future iteration is the moneymaker?
Yeah, that's the big question. I think we want to kind of get out of the interviews and conversations we have with them, because that's where that's like the crossroads where they're at, and I don't know the answer to.
So they're still heavily, because I hit prototypes probably like a month ago or whatever. Foam is definitely where they're aiming, and they are bringing some real power with foam that they're working on. So
yeah, big focus on foam for them. I know that, and yeah, I've hit some of those prototypes as well, and some of those are very interesting. I actually was starting to lose faith in foam a little bit.
Yeah,
with some of these more recent releases since carbon, and I was like, oh, maybe foam isn't really the future. Is it really what I thought it was going to be? But some of these prototypes I hit with them kind of reversed my thinking back to the way it was. Okay, maybe there is still some serious potential with foam performance wise of getting.
Well, I mean, and I would argue as someone who like hasn't hit these prototypes and has only really experienced. I mean, so within the paddle market, true foams are all court leaning power, right? And that's the most powerful compressed foam paddle, not EVA, none of these other foam cannons. But I mean, blue core. Control leaning all court, 008. I mean, you got to get really thin for it to get some pop on the 10 millimeter. Like there's just no foam paddle that has come out yet that has kind of been in that all court or power or super power category. And so it kind of seems like all of these foam paddles, like the construction of when you use this compressed foam, obviously I know it changes with how you compress it and, pounds per square inch, but they're all kind of in all court control. And so it just seems like they're different flavors of the same tech. And so from my perspective, I'm seeing the same thing. And I think I'm currently having those same doubts because I just like haven't been able to hit like what is a power foam paddle like that with this compressed foam.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, time will tell. Time will tell. But I do think there is some light at the end of that tunnel still that was starting to darken for me a little bit.
All right, moving on to the lawsuit. So USAP, everybody knows JOOLA was suing USAP for the whole JOOLA debacle and the delisting of the paddles after they were approved. So USAP slaps them with a countersuit, basically claiming that the paddles they sent them for testing had essentially a half the amount of foam that was in the production model, so that the production models were basically nowhere near what they had sent them for.
Did you guys see
testing.
Those pictures?
Yes, and I saw those pictures. I have the pictures saved. I don't know if you want to throw it up on the podcast, but
yeah, I'll throw it up because it's interesting.
It's a drastic difference that like you can't claim that it was like manufacturing variance. It's way too much.
It's that big of a difference.
Yeah. So we'll see how that all pans out. I don't know if it's just going to be like a stalemate because, they're suing them and they're suing them. And if they're just like, all right, just let's drop lawsuits.
Yeah.
But didn't USAP get loud about grit? Wasn't the whole, or was grit just the, like FBI kicked the door down? Was that the only way they could get them? Like, because didn't they come after JOOLA for illegal limits of grit, not any of this internal variant components, like different paddle?
That's not ringing a bell. Like USAP was countering them originally with grit issues.
Kyle, is that not right? Didn't USAP originally go after the original Gen 3 because of too much grit? Wasn't that how they banned it?
I think that was the rumor. I don't think it ever was grit. I think it was always. Take that back. Once the first,
I could be wrong.
Originally, they did say it was grit, but the first official statement ended up being. Okay. What we received to test is not the same as what's being sold. But yeah, I do remember people were like, "Oh, it's the grit." But the first like real USAP statement that came out was basically, "We were provided paddles that are not the same as what is being sold."
This kind of changed my mind a little bit. I think I was in the camp of JOOLA for this, and now seeing this report come out, I'm all of a sudden don't really know where to sit or have an opinion now. I don't know.
Yeah, because when we went to JOOLA, they were very self-aware. They were like, we made a legal paddle. Like we, like they made fun of themselves. Like what's his name? Austin, the engineer, was saying flop of the year. We deserve it. Yet this feels disconnected. Like this was strategically like tactical on they wanted to do, like a bait and switch, versus when we met JOOLA, it was just like, we just made a power paddle that was too powerful and it was illegal and we're going to tone it down for the future. So like there's two stories that kind of feel disconnected on like a self-aware mistake versus like strategically being deceitful.
I do have like another conspiracy. That's not a conspiracy theory, but like if they were manufactured differently, like that could have not been intentional too. And then JOOLA just didn't want to scrap all those paddles. Like I'm not saying like they had malintent and were like, let's juice these paddles with double the foam. Maybe they got manufactured with more foam and JOOLA just didn't want to scrap their entire order. Like that's a lot of paddles to get rid of.
If that was the case, then that proves USAP, right?
Yeah. No, right? It does. But I'm just saying like, it's not necessarily JOOLA was out there trying to put more foam in the paddle. with malintent.
But still, like at what point do you get the production model? You cut it open and you see it has way too much foam, and then you go like, well, you got 10,000 of these. So let's let it rip.
No,
is that it?
I mean, I would buy that story more than, which is still wrong.
Their QC department was single digits at that point, and again, I guess if you put in an order, I mean, Braydon, it's like getting a tungsten shipment that's the wrong stuff, and then now you're kind of stuck with 40 million metric tons of tungsten. What do you do?
I mean, in that case, usually you can work with the manufacturer and say, hey, these are wrong. Let's redo them. And that's typically the manufacturer's fault, and they will cover that, or at least the most of it. And so unless there was some time crunch to get paddles out,
I guess we'll have to see.
Which I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they were even saying they were on time crunches for Pro 4s. I mean, I know there was USAP delays on approving, and obviously that's why they didn't launch with full shapes. But I remember even when we were at the launch event, it felt like the Pro 4 launch was coming really fast, and it was rushed as well. And so maybe rushed launches are normalized, and so those circumstances. But again, every time I hear this story and we reopen like the buried grave of the whole YOLA Gen 3 debacle, I feel like I flip sides, kind of like what you're saying, Braydon, like against YOLA. And then we go to the YOLA event, they're self-aware. They're like, yeah, we messed up. We made a mistake. We made an illegal pattern. Like, and we meet people, we shake hands, we talk to like real humans. And we're like, oh, YOLA, good company, mistake. And then USAP comes a counter lawsuit. And then now we're back on the original. So it's like a flip-flop. I don't know what to like, you know what I mean? Like, what do we do?
I guess we just watch and don't endorse anybody.
Exactly. We remain neutral.
Yeah, this has been a weird one, and there's so much money at stake, right?
Yeah, millions of dollars.
200 million with the original YOLA lawsuit, and I don't know how countersuits or anything like that works, but I mean these aren't big boy numbers.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of. I know I was skimming through the countersue, and they're asking for repayment of defamation of their name, and that can putting a price on that can be a lot. There was a lot of stuff that made sense. That I'm sure the final total is quite a bit. All right. Anything else there, Kyle?
I think you got the notes. I don't have the notes up. Was that it?
Yeah, I think we got it all.
I think so. The last thing, there was some drama that just happened. I don't know if you guys saw it, but ALW and Hayden got into it. Hayden called Analia choice word.
Fed's favorite go-to.
Called her the B word, and then she was ready to throw down. She actually went after him. They had to stop her.
Well, good for her.
So it was.
But I don't know what caused it. I don't know. You can't. It's hard to comment on.
Nah, there was just tension. It was just.
There was tension going into the game, and then Zane hit a Patriquin-esque speed up where it was just
intended to hit him.
Targeting, but below the shoulders, so it's not targeting because of accuracy, but a bomb, and so and then they won because Patriquin was playing with our girl Kate, and obviously they got 11-3'd, and so there was tension, and the game-winning point was a missile body bag, and so Hayden's waddling off, kind of doing his Patriquin, pissed off, does his murmur, and ALW gets right in his face. It got spicy quick.
But that's why I love MLP, because I feel like this happens more in MLP than it does in regular PPA.
I will say team sports, it's so much more fun when you get team sports, because then you can just, you love certain teams. You love there's storylines of this team doesn't like this team. And so I forgot how much I enjoyed watching MLP. And so going back to the whole side out scoring, I could care less. I prefer side out scoring, but I was just it was refreshing to enjoy the format of MLP.
Yeah. And to this particular match, it sounded like it built from game to game. The tension built from game to game with one event after another. That would never happen at a PPA event, right? Because after the game it's over, it doesn't continue to build.
And with all the partner swapping too, a lot of times it's a lot of the drama can reset if you're just with a new partner or your former enemy or anything like that. And so with MLP and team format, it definitely can compound, which makes good television. When it was happening, they were about to cut to commercial, and Dave Fleming literally goes, "Don't cut to commercial. We are going to get all of this." And I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, 9 out of 10 sports would cut to a commercial during a fight other than hockey. But pickleball is we have someone's attention. We are not cutting. We have record high views. We're going to go viral here. Do not WWE. Cut the camera unless there's unless there's blood. Yeah, they were so Dave was "Do not cut. Give me a close what's up. He like went into like producer mode, and it was super entertaining. It was like you never want people to fight.
Yeah,
but, I mean, TV
yeah,
sells.
I'm a fan of MLP. The next event is an MLP event, right? They're not doing straight to PPA stuff.
I didn't look at the schedule. I don't know what's next week.
That's the impression I had, but I guess you can't quote me on it. I do know US Open is happening right now.
Yeah, I'll say US Open.
Some of those games there if you're interested in some of that. But there's no PPA signed players there. Okay, moving over to Paddle, Babble, and Gear, brought to you by ADV. I've been using their backpack for ages now. I'm a big fan of it. A couple of things I'm going to point out this week I haven't in past weeks is the bag stands up on its own. It's a backpack style, stands up on its own. That is such an underrated feature that I love about this thing. So you don't have to, you can just set it on the ground, access everything you need. Plus it just has really high quality fence hooks and it has them on each side. So you can, when you put it up, it has a really stable hold on the fence. It doesn't sway on you. Mm-hmm. So everything in here just seems really thought out, and I haven't found anything in it that upsets me. Only good stuff. So go check out this bag. Link in the description. Plus, ADV has a ton of other different paddle accessories and things. If you're interested in, you can use the code PBEffect for a discount. And thanks to them for sponsoring. Love their stuff.
ADV.
Okay, preview of the paddle benchmark report. So before we get into some of the storylines and some of these graphs that I plopped into our notes, I just want to say thanks to everyone who participated. We had over 1,200 responses, which is no small amount. This is quite a few people. So from you guys, the Pickleball Effect audience, I also sourced some people from Reddit, Facebook, and then Discord. Mm-hmm. And so thinking of who this audience is, I think is important before we look at these stats, because the people in these groups, these aren't your everyday player, right? These are people who are very invested in pickleball. These are people who care about equipment. Yeah. Anyone who took the time to respond to the survey is going to be someone who's interested in equipment. And so I guess if we were to attach a name to these people, I would say these are the early adopters. These are the trendsetters. These are going to be a smaller group of the whole
nerds.
But whatever these are the nerds. But whatever this group,
nerds it's a prerequisite.
Yeah, there we go. Whatever this group is into, whatever the trends are within this group, filters down the line eventually. And so these are the people who kind of decide things, I think. So there were some trends and some things I noticed in this that I was like, okay, this makes sense for this audience, but it probably doesn't replicate the larger, just, the 2 million players out there, right?
Do you have a percentage of what if you could soft say this nerd community that we often speak to, that fills out the survey, is it 10% of the pickleball community? Is it of 40?
Of all people that play pickleball?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea.
I bet you it's 1%
Yeah,
when you take in. Well, 1%? When you take into account like everybody that plays pickleball, I'm sure it's pretty small.
And again, I guess you could do the math of if we have 1,200 people of 2 million, obviously that's less than a percentile. But just kind of to get a pulse of, because when you came and said 1,200, I was like, wow, like this is real living and breathing data. Like we can kind of really dive into and identify a lot of different things. So 1,200 was a much bigger number than I was expecting to see. But again, right, in the totality of 2 million, 1,200 is also
when you're talking statistical significance, let's say this 1,200 was an accurate representation of, the larger market. 1,200 would be enough to be statistically relevant to the general population of pickleball. So the number's there. Mm-hmm. I just don't think the 1,200 people we polled are representative of the whole market. It's just it's more of those early adopters, the trendsetters, the nerds, right? So this number is meaningful. The data here is real, which is really cool. And no one, at least that I'm aware of, no one has done anything like this. And so this is kind of the first of its kind. And so plan is to do this on a quarterly basis, and it'll be even, I think it'll get more interesting over time when we do this Q2, Q3, Q4 and see how things fluctuate, and we can compare quarter to quarter. Right now, this was just a snapshot. So it'll get even more interesting over time, and to see how the current trends hold up. And it'll be really fun just to see how quickly things shift, is particularly on a brand and like paddle model level. So this first chart we're going to talk about are the most popular paddles, like the models, not brands, just the paddles themselves. And I bet this looks very different next quarter, just of how quickly things move, right? But maybe it's not as quick as we think. Maybe this lasts longer. Maybe it takes 2 quarters to shift, but that'll be fun to see. But so first chart we're going to talk about are the most popular paddles. So of these 1,200 people, the number 1 paddle was the Vapor Power from 11.624.
Damn.
By a good margin.
Yeah.
Second was the True Foam Genesis 2. Third was the Honolulu J2K. Fourth was the Double Black Diamond. And then fifth was the Pulse V from Pickleball Apes. So Vapor Power, not surprised to see that up there. True Foam Genesis, not surprised to see that up there. Those two, interestingly, were new releases in Q1. J2K, Double Black Diamond are both paddles that have been out a year plus, right?
Yeah.
So there's some staying power there. And I think to have that staying power within this particular audience
that's huge.
Really big. Yeah, really impressive. Pulse V kind of surprised me. I knew that it was a popular paddle. I didn't think it was this popular. And then you had the Perseus Pro 4, 16 millimeter and 14 millimeter in the top 10. We had another 11.624 power in there, another True Foam in there, and then Bread and Butter Invader came in.
Yeah, let's go.
That was another kind of like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
but yeah, those are the top, and not necessarily any surprises outside of maybe the kind of the J2K DBD being as high as they are. But yeah, that was a fun one. And I think what was really interesting I guess before I jump to the next one, like first impressions from you guys, what do you think when you hear those numbers? Those names?
I'm blown away that the DBD's just been staying that long. That speaks a lot to that paddle.
That one's been out for 2 years.
It does.
Yeah, that kind of shows the staying power of that particular model, especially among this group. Like that's pretty wild. I should have looked at release dates for all these, like years. That might have been interesting because Vapor Power, True Foam, those are both this year. J2K was 2024. Double Black Diamond was 2023. It might have been technically the end of 2022. All these other ones are like within the last 6-month releases, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, to have that one stick around was pretty impressive. And then, but like an absent one here is Paddle Tech. I thought we might see a Bantam in there, but when we look at top brands, I guess I didn't have brands on here, but one of the top brands is Paddle Tech. So it was funny to see them as a top brand, but not a top paddle. And then in connection to this, I wanted to bring up shapes. I've done a couple polls and things on Reddit and on my Instagram of shapes, but this was the most comprehensive one I've ever taken. So elongated was the most popular shape at 40%, hybrid second most popular at 33%, and then wide body was the third most popular at 28%. So this is overall. But then when you break this down by duper, this is when it gets really fun and interesting. So at the 3.0 to 4.5 level, the elongated is 40%, hybrid is 32%, and then wide body is 28%. So you have a lot less elongated at lower levels and more hybrids and wide bodies. And then you have, as you move up in level, the elongated percentage increases. Yep. So once you get to 5.0, the elongated percentage is 60%.
Dang.
So 5.0 plus is just dominated by the elongated space. And I thought, like, that makes sense. Like, you hear that, you're not totally surprised, but it is still a little shocking how prevalent the elongated is at the higher level. And then it just slowly creeped up. People seem to go to elongated as they improve in skill, which makes sense, right? Like, you're getting better, you can manage the sweet spot better, and you're looking for any extra reach you can at the kitchen. But at the same time, I've still think that hybrids and wide bodies should be explored more at higher levels. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of advantages to them that with hand speed and forgiveness, extending rallies, and a little extra pop. You can usually get more pop with the shorter shapes than you can with the elongated. And but so this will be a fun one to follow over time. In particular, hybrid. So when I was looking at, okay, right now as it stands, elongated is 40%, hybrid is 33%. But when you look at the top 5 brands in this space, 3 of them currently do not have a hybrid shape, which is Carbon, JOOLA, and PaddleTech. So having 3 of the most popular brands not offer a hybrid, and having a hybrid still being right on the heels of elongated, speaks to the power of that shape a lot, I think. And I wonder if Carbon, JOOLA, PaddleTech do ever come out with hybrids, if we do see that finally shift, hybrid becomes number 1 overall, elongated drops. As much as I love wide bodies, I don't think it'll ever overtake hybrid or elongated.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna keep preaching it though.
But you guys had recently a Q&A where you were like, is there better paddle shapes for levels? And I think you guys spoke and said yes. You know, the more new you are to pickleball, we'd recommend a wider, more forgiving shape. It's just, I think the power of data is it allows you to speak objectively and not from impressions, right? And I think that's kind of why we miss potentially that the DBD is still such a relevant paddle, because in our heads it's like the DBD is back in the Stone Age, right? We're 1,000 paddles past it, but then you pull data and you're like, this is still like a living and breathing paddle that's really popular, that a lot of players are still playing. So when you say, hey, what's the best paddle shape for a 3.0 level or something like even newer, and then you go a wide body, and 1, it's an impression of an expert, but 2, it's based on, we reviewed 1,200 people, and now we're in a year, we'll have a year of data. And so you can like make analytical, objective decisions, again, from nerds, but still it allows you to not speak off opinions and bias. And so I think numbers are really powerful, and those are really cool observations.
Yeah. I like the perspective of a person as like, okay, this is my level. Maybe I should consider these shapes. Like it can help you find the right shape and paddle that works for you. But then for brands too, I think, you know, JOOLA, Carbon, PaddleTech, these guys need to seriously look at the hybrid shape. It is here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, you're doing market research for them.
Yeah, like brands, I hope they look at this and can see the power of hybrid. I for example, Selkirk, when they were in town for the opening of their store, had some conversations with some of their team members there, how they were going to potentially launch in the future with just 2 shapes, an elongated and a wide body. And I asked them, I'm like, why not hybrid? And our conversation got cut off short, but he was kind of leading into they didn't think that there was enough difference between a hybrid, wide body, and elongated for the consumer really to kind of notice it or understand it. And it's just easier to do these 2 shapes. These are the 2 obvious differences. And I can understand that. You can simplify it, do this in and out burger approach, right? You just have your 2 options, make it easy on them.
Yeah.
But this is a pretty strong argument that their target audience, this kind of larger market 3.0 to 4.0 level, loves hybrid shape paddles. And from my perspective, there's a clear delineation between hybrid, elongated, and wide body, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. Or so I've heard this thought experiment before where you're like, don't ever give someone 3 options, especially in sales. Give them 2, give them left or right, and they'll make a decision faster than if you overwhelm them with 3. So then you go, well, that makes sense. Okay, if the data's true on that, all right, we're going to do wide body and we're going to do elongated. But I think what they're missing is, if you're going to do 2, do a hybrid and do a wide body. If you have a small subsect of your customers playing elongated paddles, but let's just say 75% plus are below 4.5, 5.0, and they need a paddle that's good for them, the 2 options are, would you like a hybrid that has a little bit more power, or would you like a wide body that's probably best for you? And you still make an elongated. Again, I know this will never happen, but you make an elongated for your pro players or your UPA only, right, player. But if it's 2 options, technically the elongated shouldn't exist.
Yeah, I would think so. For the vast majority, from like that 3.0 to 4.5, the combination of wide body hybrid is pretty compelling. However, if you combine elongated, well, actually, it might be the other way around, Aaron. I would have to go. I only have the 3.0 to 4.0 chart and my 5.0 in front of me. But if we were to combine percentages here, it might be the most popular two shapes are elongated hybrid and you ignore wide body.
Yeah. I would bet
it might be the other way around.
I was just arguing it from the level of what most players, what paddle shapes they're using for their level. And so building off that argument, if the majority of your customers are lower level, then you make the shape that follows them. Again, I think the reason that elongateds are the most popular paddles is because that's just what has existed historically. And so I bet if we had year-over-year data of the last 5 years, my guess is elongateds would be at a historical low as far as usage. And so, again, people are only driving what has been selling. And so I think that's why, even if we're starting our historical data in 2025, I think that's why it's so important, because then we can't all speak from impressions. You know, we were looking back at this data and saying 2 years ago, 80% of the market was playing elongateds. And now in 2025, now that we have power wide bodies, we've seen that a reduction by 30%. And here's why I think why. And so,
that's good.
It's a unique call.
Or and maybe you adjust shapes for the type of paddle. I didn't have these charts on here, but I have a whole section in the benchmark report looking at paddle types. So you have like control, all court power per duper level. This is another one that's really interesting. It kind of follows this shape trend where at the lower levels, all court and control paddles just dominate. And then as you get to that 4.5, 5.0, 5.5 plus, power just crushes everything else in terms of, owning the percent of that market. And so, maybe just make an elongated shape for your power models and kind of focus on hybrid, maybe for the all court controls.
Yeah.
I know there could be some mixing and matching there potentially that makes sense. Is Aaron still on there?
What's up?
You dropped?
No, he's on there. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you dropped.
I'm good.
Anyway, so that was a fun one. Kyle, any impressions from you?
No, I mean, it's almost exactly how I would have guessed, but I do think Aaron does have a point too, that like, I think back to like when I started pickleball, there was only two shapes. There was standard and elongated. And I would bet that we are at an all-time low for elongated use, even though it shows that it's being dominated. I think it's way less than it used to be. With the introduction
that could very well be true.
Power wide bodies, hybrids, so it'll be fun to track.
Yeah, it'll be really fun to track. And elongate has always been associated with more power, right? I think a year or 2.5 years ago, really the only way you could get power was with a longer paddle, just because you needed that leverage.
Yeah.
But that has started to shift this last year. There's still not a ton of true power wide bodies, but we're getting more of them. You have the Scorpius models, which are kind of leading the charge there. There's like wide body isn't fleshed out as well as these other shapes in the power space. And I wonder if as technology improves, as we start to see more power paddles in hybrid and wide body shapes, if this starts to shift a little bit.
It has to. Yeah, it's going. If there's a crave for power, and people also acknowledge that this shape probably supports their game. I think in the past, a person would make a bad decision saying, I'm going to pursue power if that means elongated. And so the more of I can get the shape I want and the power I'm also looking for, I do think that will change the data. You're right.
So, that'll be fun to trend. And this is like the perfect time to get in on that, because I can't help but think that in the next year and a half is when we start to see a true parity of paddle shapes and levels of power. That's going to come. All right, this is so fun. Like these conversations that we just had, I hope a lot of other people and brands have these same conversations and they go through this benchmark report, because it's really interesting. And it makes it easier to speak to. Okay.
Right. This is a gold mine, truly. What's the next category?
We're already at over an hour, so I'm going to skip to the last chart I had here. I'm going to talk about swing weight. So swing weight, I just have a line chart here. I'll throw it up on the screen, but for those listening, describing what this chart looks like is it's starting at about 109 swing weight. It starts to significantly increase as we get to about 115 to 118. It kind of evens out there, and then it just drops off at 119 like drastically. There's this huge just decline in swing weight there. So this is just saying how many the swing weight of the paddles people are playing. And this stark drop off at 118, I think, is a strong sign that head heavy paddles are not well liked.
I think it's a strong sign you guys need to hit the weight room.
118,
1,200 people.
Kind of seems like the number here. Like that's right when it kicks down. And so I thought that was really interesting. I thought it might level out a little bit because you kind of have a steady increase from 109 up to about 118, but it's not a bell curve. It's just it increases and then just stops. And then there is a little jump at swing weight 122, and that's just because of the popularity of the True Foam Genesis 1, which is 122. So you have a small spike there.
Are you also seeing the same data on below 109? Isn't that an equivalent drop off? So it really like is kind of similar, maybe not as harsh as the 120 plus, but it's almost like 110 below, too light, right? 120 above, too heavy.
Yeah.
Like it's porridge. It's too hot.
Yeah, too
cold,
hot,
right?
too cold. And I mean, and there's not as many paddle options like in the 120s and under 109, though there are some. So like the available paddles in those ranges kind of reflect how many you can buy and use, right? But that aside, there are still plenty of paddles out there, 119, 120, 121 swing weight. And to see that immediate drop off there was fascinating. And so that's another big one I think for brands to pay attention to is if you're not looking or considering the swing weight of your paddle as you're building these, I think that's a miss.
Yeah.
And anyways, I thought that was a good one there, but that's just one of the many charts. This thing is just under 20 pages long. I'm really excited for this thing to get out there.
It's so cool.
As the mega nerds we are, it was so fun making this and thinking through these questions and trying to find these trends and the stories and the data. I'd never sat down and thought this way just because you can't without the numbers. And so it's been really enlightening, really excited to get this out into the world, see how people respond. I think there's going to be a lot of interest in this. I don't know. Of the 1,200 people that took the survey, about 600 of them said, yes, please send me the data after you've compiled it and analyzed it. And so 50% of them wanted to see it immediately. And so I think that kind of speaks to the interest level of this. But I'm really pumped about it. Goal is to have this available to download when the pod launches. So I'll have a link in the description for the benchmark report when this the podcast goes live. And we'll see how it does. I'm hoping it does well. If it does well, I think we'll do this on a quarterly basis. If not, maybe it'll be like a semi-annual thing.
Sweet.
Braydon, does it make sense long term to keep it open and you just use it as a constant CTA for videos, constantly saying, hey, go fill this out, and then it compiles in some master sheet, and then you organize it by every 3-month cycle later, versus having these windows of asking people and then people aren't opting in? Like, do you think we could up to 1,200 quarterly if you just say this is living and breathing and we're always plugging it?
I can see that being challenging if I fill out the survey early in the quarter, but then I switch paddles 2 weeks later and I use that more of the quarter, because the survey, the way I have it reading now is tell me what paddle you played the most. Maybe you played 3 paddles consistently during the quarter, but this is the one you played the most.
Right.
So that might be more difficult to capture that way. But as this gets bigger, we do need to get creative. Potentially, how can we grow this? How can we get more people involved? Maybe do some partnerships with some bigger, Facebook communities or something. But I also need to think of a way to make sure people don't game the system, because now that this is out there, I'm sure no one really thought of this to do this the first round. But the second round, I'm sure there'll be like brands that are saying, go fill this out, bump up our numbers. So how do I avoid duplicate entries and things like that? I'll have to add some sort of gate system to prevent that. So that's something I'm thinking of that could potentially be a challenge in the future. But regardless, we're going to make it cool and really pumped about it.
Love it.
All right, you guys.
It's awesome.
All right, boys.
Thank you for coming in. Everyone, thank you for listening. Let us, if you do download the report and you see some stuff that you're interested in, spark a conversation in the discussion below. Let's talk about it. Maybe if I'm missing something that you want to include in the next report, that I'll take requests too. So anyways, we'll end with that. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Have a good night.
Peace.